KURINJI Senior Secondary School, CBSE, Namakkal.
Successful result producing school in state every year.
Administered by the Board of Directors with over 35 years of experience in the teaching field.
Special attention on art, craft, music, dance, silambam, yoga, skating and karate.
Focus on Hindi Sabha and Spell Bee Olympiad exams.
Smart class for effective and innovative learning and well-furnished library.
Solitary importance on sports and games in state and national level.
WhatsApp facilities to know activities of students and school inside the campus.
Free bus for LKG to 8th standard.
Free, hygienic and nutritious food.
NEET, JEE, IIT coaching experts from Rajasthan and Andhra Pradesh along with our effective teachers.
Admission registration for classes LKG to +2.
Talent cum scholarship exam will be held on 14/4/2020 and 19/4/2020.
KURINJI Educational Institutions, CBSE and State Board, Namakkal.
KURINJI Educational Institution, Kavetipatti, Namakkal. Admission in progress. CBSE, KG to 12, contact 9025895176. Metric, 6 to 12, contact 9344567484. For online admission, log on to www.kurinjischoolnkl.in.
Students, now in this video we are discussing Phloem Transport, flow from source to sink, second video. Why? Because in previous video, so in the end of the board, we have learned this amount of information on this concept, but in this video complete perfect information we are going to discuss. Right, now continuation of previous video. So in previous video, under this topic, what is information we have seen now? Suppose if you take phloem members, so definitely phloem members helps in the translocation of food materials. We seen likewise if you take the xylem members helps in the conduction or the transport of water and minerals. We seen later one more point. So the leaf will be the source. Why? Because the leaf has the capability of the process of photosynthesis. Whereas the source, if you see there, sink, if you see there, sink is nothing but where the food materials are going to be utilized or stored. So that information we have seen in previous video. Now in this video, what is information we are discussing is sugar stored in roots. So means here what is the point? No. Why this point means? Yesterday one more point is there, what it is, sir, all the time the leaf will be the source, sir, means based on the environment, means based on the seasonal variations and based on some kind of circumstances if you concern. So sometimes no source will be sink and sometimes sink will be the source. So means here what is the point? Here leaf, our knowledge point of view, we are taking the leaf as a source, but sometimes even root also acts as a source. Now only I said no, based on the seasonal variations or based on some kind of activities concerned, sometimes roots also acts as sources. So based on that point, here what we have written here, sugar stored in the roots may be mobilized to become a source of food in the earlier spring. When the buds of a tree acts as sink, they need energy for their growth and development of the photosynthetic apparatus. So easy to understand. So it is easy to understand. So based on this information, what we can understand? No, suppose if you take the roots, so roots also sometimes acts as sources. So why? Because already, so suppose if you take there in some kind of plants food materials which are stored in the roots, so thereby during the development or during the plant growth and development, what is happening? So the food materials which are already stored in the roots starts to mobilize. Okay, so thereby here starts to mobilize and it will be translocated to the all parts of the plant. So means the food materials which are useful, for the third line and fourth line, so which are useful for the plant growth as well as development. Sir, why sir here means, so when we are going to observe the early spring season, so in our areas we can find out very clearly So in early spring, no, that particular plant will not have the leaves and all. So all leaves are fell down before the season. So thereby in this particular in early spring season, no, so we will observe the formation of new leaves. So means at the time, no, like the plant will be like, so new plant means why here there we will notice the formation of the formation and the development of leaves. Okay man, now here what is information now? So here the food materials or the energy which is coming towards the it is coming towards the towards the sink where the food material or where the food materials are going to be utilized. Means in this particular case in early spring season, what is the concept now we are going to learn here? The growth and the development of the photosynthetic apparatus we are noticing. Means there at the time the leaves and flowers of formation concerned, the food materials which are coming from the roots which are already stored. So simple information amma. So in early spring season, actually in early spring season the plant will not have leaves as well as inflorescence. No, at the time if you notice the flower there small, now only the small birds as well as vegetative parts and leaves of formation takes place. At the time if you see the plant, it will be like a new plant. So means sir in that particular time, no, the plant how sir it will get a food materials, means it gets its own food material from the root. Why? Because so based on the means here the food materials which are already stored in the roots. Okay, so that's why from the roots the food materials mobilization starts to move all parts of the plants for the plant growth as well as development. Okay, now since the source and the sink relationship is a variable, means sir all the time the sink and the source is sometimes there is a chance to the get variability. Okay, next one, the direction of movement in the phloem can be upwards or downwards, or that is bidirectional. Okay, means if you see there the direction of movement in the phloem, means here the phloem, if you see there, no, is the term important. So means if you see the phloem, okay, so there the phloem direction of movement we will be seeing in both directions. So one is upward or backward, means downwards, or bidirectional, means that is in bidirectional flow, or sometimes it will be in multidirectional. Bidirectional or multidirectional. Why we are using the word? Suppose our knowledge point of view, suppose if the food materials are there in the leaves, if leaf is there in the middle of this stem, suppose for example, and inflorescence is there above the leaf and the roots are there below the leaf. At the time once you observe the diagram, actually here not there, just in our mind, once you sketch the diagram and once you observe there, the leaf is in the middle and the inflorescence as well as the fruits are at apical regions, means just above the leaf, and the roots are there absolutely at the down of the leaf. So thereby definitely the food materials translocation will be in bidirectional or sometimes will be in multidirectional. So thereby now this contrast with that of the xylem, means here what is the opposite? Contrast means in opposite conditions only, we can understand. So thereby this contrast with that of the xylem, where the movement is always unidirectional, means that is always upwards. Here these 2 points mainly we need to focus. Means if you take phloem members, food materials translocation will be in bidirectional flow, whereas if you take xylem members, there water and minerals translocation will be there in unidirectional or always will be in upward. Always will be in upward. Later, hence unlike one-way flow of water in the transpiration, the food in the phloem sap can be transported in any required direction. So thereby here what is the point? Here water transportation takes place only in unidirectional way, but here the food materials translocation will be there based on the requirement. Based on the requirement means definitely food materials location will not be there only in one directional. Food materials, it must be translocated or it must be reached to the all parts of the plant. All parts of the plants means definitely food materials translocation will be there in multi-direction. But if you see the xylem members, it's a confirm always water and minerals carried from the roots to aerial parts. Means if you take the function of xylem, there always water and minerals translocation takes place in unidirectional, means that is always from the root to towards the aerial parts. But same kind of thing will not be, or we cannot be seen even we cannot be seen in phloem. Why? So here in phloem, food materials as well as some other kind of organic compounds translocation takes place. At the time, based on the requirement, food materials directions or food material transport will be there. Means here the directions will be many. Where in case of phloem, so likewise, so as long as there is a source of sugar and the sink able to use, so stored or the remove sugar. So thereby here from the source the food materials which are going to be translocated towards the sink where the food materials are going to be utilized or stored. So this is information to be discussed very well. Easy concept only understand pannikonga. The phloem sap is mainly contains water as well as sucrose, but also other kind of sugars, hormones, amino acids also transported or translocated through the phloem. These two lines NEET examination point of view important. Suppose if you take a phloem sap, so if you observe the phloem sap, there what are the things are present means we will notice the water, sucrose, other sugars, hormones, some other amino acids. Likewise, there are so many number of chemical compounds together translocated by the phloem members. So up to here, this is the entire information which we can be discussed under the phloem transport. Phloem transport means how the source is involved in the transport, as well as how the sink where the food materials are going to be utilized. Now till now we have seen exclusively. Now let us going to start the important information of this concept is nothing but pressure flow hypothesis or mass flow hypothesis. So that is nothing but pressure flow hypothesis or mass flow hypothesis. Now you see there next concept is pressure flow hypothesis or mass flow hypothesis. Now it is an accepted mechanism used for the translocation of sugars from the source to sink is known as pressure flow hypothesis. Means in this particular mechanism now we will notice how what are the food materials which are stored in the source, how these are all going to be reached to the sink. Now we will be learning under the pressure flow hypothesis. Now as glucose is prepared at the source by the photosynthesis, it is converted into sucrose. Already we know very well. I told you also already. So now once you see there, as glucose is prepared at the source by the process of photosynthesis, and it is converted into sucrose. That's why we learned, I think so 1 or 2 classes before I told you, sucrose is transport form, I told you, isn't it? So here the sucrose is a disaccharide. Now the sugar is then moved. Sugar now is then moved in the form of sucrose into the companion cells first. Means so now the glucose is there in the leaves. Now when it is going to be translocated into the other parts, now it is converted into the sucrose. Now from the this sucrose from the leaves to now it is entered into the companion cells of the phloem. So for the first time, then into the living phloem sieve tube cells. Okay, now here later it will be entered into the sieve tube cells by active transport. So active transport means again it needs the involvement of energy. Means when the food materials are present in the companion cells, from the companion cells to the food materials now which are going to be translocated towards the sieve tube cells, so by the active transport. Next one, this process of loading at the source produces the hypertonic solution in the phloem. So here when the food materials are going to be loaded into the sieve tube elements, in the sieve tube elements, so what we can observe, the synthesis or we can observe the producing of hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution means where we will find out the more concentration of chemicals. Means here the more concentration of a chemical is nothing but here which one is going to be entered, sucrose is going to be entered into the sieve tube elements. So thereby in a sieve tube elements the hypertonic condition or the hypertonic solution preparation we can see, means there the condition of the chemicals will be more or the concentration of the chemicals will be more and the percentage of water will be less, isn't it? So that kind of condition here we can notice. So at the time, sir, what is happened, sir, at the time means once you see water in the adjacent xylem, ipo xylem and phloem pakadali dana irukano. So at the time what is happening, when water in the adjacent xylem moves into the phloem by osmosis. Ipo paatha in sieve tube elements I told you chemical concentration is more, that's why water percentage is less we seen. Ipu pakadali xylem is no, in xylem water percentage will be more. If at the time our knowledge point of view definitely water will move from the higher water potential to lower water potential. Ipu patha, so the water is more in the xylem, so that's why start to move towards the phloem members. So thereby here how the water molecules will move into the phloem, by the process of osmosis. So maximum times water moves only by the process of osmosis. Okay, next one, as osmotic pressure builds up in the xylem, in a phloem sap, will move to the areas of lower pressure. Okay, now here what is the point? As osmotic pressure builds up, the phloem sap will move to the areas of lower pressure. Means here definitely food materials which are going to be translocated from the higher osmotic higher osmotic pressure to lower osmotic pressure. Okay, now at the sink osmotic pressure must be reduced. So definitely that is only now we seen. So now at the sink osmotic pressure is a very less or the reduced. Again the active transport is necessary to move the sucrose out of the phloem sap. So again now here again by the active transport, what are the food materials are there in the phloem? All food materials again which are coming out of the phloem again by the process of active transport. Listen carefully. One point you try to save in your mind clearly. When the food materials are there in the leaves, the food materials which are entering into the phloem members by active transport, and once the food materials are reached to the sink, even that time also food materials are unloading from the phloem members again by the active transport. Means definitely for loading process of food materials as well as unloading of food materials, definitely which one is required? ATP, or it is a ATP or energy dependent process. Definitely energy dependent process is nothing but active transport. Okay, I hope you understood. Suppose if you get any doubts here, so definitely remind me in presence of you. I will explain this concept one more time. But one and only the thing, so you must remember, so what is the information we are going to discuss now? So when we are going to study or when we are going to learn the concept on this, then only we will be in a competition of NEET exam. Okay, so now listen carefully. Now, and the cells which will use the sugar, means we are going to read regarding the sink. Next one, the sugar converted into the energy and the starch or the cellulose based on the requirement. Next one, as the sugars are removed, the osmotic pressure reduce or decrease, and the water when once the once the water food materials which are reached to the sink regions, means that are maybe roots or shoot system, once the food materials are reached to the sink, now in the phloem members again now osmotic pressure is decreased. Once the osmotic pressure is decreased, now here what we can study means what are the food materials are there in the phloem again, what are the water minerals, water is there in the phloem again starts to go back to the xylem again. So from the xylem food water and minerals entered into the phloem. No, why there the chemical concentration is more, that's why water also entered into the where the particular chemical concentration is more. Likewise here also, once the food materials are reached to the sink, now all food materials or sugar molecules are unloaded. So at the time osmotic pressure also decreases. At the time water again moving back to the xylem from the phloem. That's why here water moves out of the phloem. Next one, to summarize, the movement of sugars in the phloem begins at the source where the sugars are added, actively transported into the sieve tube. This already I have given explanation. Later, loading of a phloem sets up a water potential gradient that facilitates the mass movement in the phloem. Means here, even the loading of a phloem sets up the water potential gradient that facilitates the mass movement in the xylem. So means here, once the food materials are loaded in the phloem members, so based on the water potential gradient starts to move from the one place to another place. So now here this entire explanation only now with this small diagram. Now let us start to discuss. Now Patama, this is leaf. Okay, leaf. So leaf has the capability to perform the process of photosynthesis. Next one, it is the tip of the stem. Okay, now here two lines are there. This is phloem, and outer two lines is like outer layers, so no need to concern. Now you see there here sugar food materials which are synthesized in the form of glucose by the process of photosynthesis. That's we know very well. Means here the starch is there first of all. So starch again it is converted into glucose. Now from the glucose to sucrose formation takes place. Now this is the sucrose, is a transport form. Already I told you so many times, remember paniko. So here these dots are there now in the leaves. Now we have denoted as sugars. Now enters into the sieve tubes. So again first of all here without a delay what we have written, so enters into the sieve tube. But here one point we have to remember what it is. First of all sugars are entered into the companion cells. From the companion cells food materials are entered now into the sieve tubes. So thereby here water, so even likewise even water also followed by the osmosis process. Why? Because here when the sugar molecules are entered into the sieve tube elements, their hypertonic solution has been prepared or is prepared. So when the hypertonic solution is prepared, what we have understood, even in this chapter only we discussed isotonic solution, hypotonic solution, hypertonic solution. Likewise we have seen three different types of solutions. So there in a hypertonic solution what we have discussed, even a differentiation also I gave hypo now 4 digits only are there, but here means 4 letters only are there. If you take a hypertonic solution there 5 letters are there, they based on that where we are finding more letters that will be having of more concentration of chemicals. Likewise one clue I have given So likewise here also hypertonic solution is nothing but the solution which has more quantity of chemicals. So thereby if more quantity of chemicals are there means what it indicates, so there we can find out the less quantity of water. Now our knowledge point of view, water definitely moves from the higher water potential to lower water potential. So they definitely water moves into the hypertonic solution. So by the process of osmosis. Koncham think paniko, then you will understand. Now food material starts to move from the leaf to other parts such as roots as well as the tip of the stem. Now, so here in the middle of the diagram, now 2 lines are there, no, totally 4 lines, no, again middle 2 lines which indicates a phloem. Okay, now here you see that at the tip of the stem, the sugars leave, sieve tubes, and water also followed by the process of osmosis. Means food materials first are loaded in the leaf, now are going to be unloaded in the stem as well as root. That's why in roots also same information we have written. Once you see sugars leave, sieve tubes for metabolic activities or storage point of view, and even water also. Even water, how it is comes from the phloem to other regions by the process of osmosis. Likewise, once the food materials are loaded in the leaf, that is a source, definitely translocated towards the sink where the food materials are going to be involved in metabolic activities, or where the food materials are going to be stored. So one and only the thing, where the osmotic pressure is more, no, from there onwards food materials are going to be translocated where the osmotic pressure is low, or over. Or one more clue I will give you, again one more concept what we can remember, no, where the turgor pressure is more, where the turgor pressure is more, so from that place onwards, so the food materials translocation will be there towards the where we will observe or where we will notice the lower turgor pressure. Means even 2 important mechanisms, based on that we can confirm so how the food materials are going to be translocated from the one place to another place. So maximum people may understand, but even though if you have doubt, no, don't keep in your heart and don't keep in your mind. Suppose if you have any doubt, no, perfectly your teacher is there ready to explain. So listen carefully. Maximum passive learning we are learning now. Maximum you cannot understand, no worry. Okay, when you will come here, no, at the time perfectly let us learn about it. But let us learn. Okay, don't neglect to learn. Try it. Otherwise, when you are getting a confusion or when you are unable to understand, no, leave it. So in presence of you, I will explain neatly by one more time. At the time you can save this entire information in your mind. Take care and be safe at home.